Hey everyone, Ketofied Kimchi? I say yes. Hey everyone, welcome Radical Geek YouTube. So I promised that we would start talking about making a ketofied kimchi, and we're going to do just that. I will tell you that, this lovely green screen that actually shows like all kinds of awesome kimchis, several kinds. It's going to go away for a minute and we'll have like some really hideous video, but I really need you to be able to see our ingredient for today because we're only doing step one, and then in the morning after that's all situated, we'll get everything together, go through all the parts, get a recipe and all that fun stuff. But for a few minutes we're gonna it's gonna be ugly so you can see awesomeness. So let me just shut these off. I believe I can do that while we talk. Maybe 50-50. Yep, there we go. So this is the studio without our awesome pictures in the background. However, now you can see this super giant, awesome, cool Napa cabbage. So you see how it looks like this. Now mine's a little fluffier than what you'll initially see in the store because I washed it. It's important to wash cabbage really well. So, but this is how it looks. And when you wash it, it does get floppy. You're going to pull out any not great looking leaves. And you're going to make sure that you get all the way down in here as you wash, all the way down to the bottom. Give them a good scrubbing. Make sure you'll find as you start folding it all out that you'll find bits of dirt here and there. And so it's real important that you just take your nice cold water and you clean that all out. So the other thing that we have for tonight is I have a pitcher of filtered water and of course, our magical, delightful salt. This is just plain old sea salt. I've ground it up. No iodine. So do not get iodized salt. You want just salt. I like sea salt. I think it tastes great in fermented foods. Kimchi is a fermented food. But this is just going to be the intro, and then we'll make it nice again. I want to show you. You just take this lovely head of Napa cabbage, and we're going to give it a big chop here with our cleaver to cut off the core. And you don't have to do it this way. You could do it the other way. But I find myself a little bit awkward with the chopping. So we cut it off. There we go. All done. Set it to the side because you can put it in your compost. And we are going to move this. I know, it's not exactly the easiest thing to show. But you take your leaves, stack them up. They don't got to be gorgeous. You're just kind of going to cut them into like chunks. Toss it in the bowl. Toss it in the bowl. Chunk. 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 Enjoy it. Napa cabbage is awesome. It's not as strong tasting as your standard green cabbage. It's almost a little bit sweet. Really hard to resist. It's delicious. Try not to eat a bunch of your cabbage while you're cutting it up, even though it's strangely addictive because it's so nice and crisp and really and sweet. It's part of what makes it so nice when you're making kimchi, because that sweet plays off the extra spicy fermentiness really nicely. So I've got half of this cabbage in my big giant bowl, and you do need a big giant bowl. You get into a lot of kimchi making and not just a little one single head like me. They use these great big wash tubs, all kinds of fun stuff. So, but we're going to now take half our salt, and as you can see, it's not a ton of salt. It is a lot of salt, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not. Weigh your cabbage without the core, and about 2% of that weight in grams. That's what you use for your salt, give or take. I just use tablespoons and I kind of eyeball it. Once you get used to making things, fermented foods, you'll get to that point where eyeballing is fine. These little delightful leaves in the middle, sometimes I pull those out, even though they're great in the kimchi, but I just think they make awesome snacks, so be it. And I'm just chopping away. And you can use whatever kind of knife you like to cut up with. I have one of these little cleavers. I found a small one in the International Grocery that fits my hand a little bit better than your standard size cleaver. But as you can see, I'm not doing anything fancy. And this is step one, and it's just chopping up our cabbage, salting it, throwing it in the bowl, and then we're going to cover it with the cold filtered water. After that, it's easy peasy because you just leave that sit overnight. And then I will be back in the morning to show you what we do after that. So, but we can put our lovely screen back on once we do that, because I just really wanted you to see how gorgeous Napa cabbage looks, in case you haven't seen it. I told you, I can't help it. It's so tasty. There's my napkin. Throw our salt. And we're going to cover it with our water. Oops. Try not to spill water all over your table. Which, by the way, there is water everywhere. That's why I put my towel down to absorb it, because it, since I had just washed it upstairs, it was everywhere. And that's it. You submerge your cabbage in the water. Make sure it's got enough water to cover it. Give it kind of like a little bit of a turnaround. Don't squeeze it. This is not your sauerkraut where you're going to squeeze the bejesus out of it. You're just going to pat it down into the water. Let the water level cover it with that nice salty brine. And that's it. Now it sits for 24 hours. So there you go. That's the step one to getting our kimchi. And we just let that go all night so that I can draw out the rest of the water and make that that first start towards the kimchi and getting everything going. So really, I know I feel like I should say a lot more, but that's all there is to it. There we go. Now we've got our background back. Now we can be normal and you can see it, and then the whole thing just disappears, but you can see a little bit. I don't want to spill water by tilting it too much. So that's it. So we'll be back in the morning and I will show you all the equipment and the rest of the stuff that goes with the kimchi, and then we'll put it together and jar it up and let it sit for about 2 to 3 weeks. Just we'll taste it along the way. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, we're back and we are ready to put together some kimchi. So yesterday, we turned our fabulous back screen off and I showed you the Napa cabbage where we put it in filtered water and salt and then left that overnight. And this morning I just got everything ready to go so we could jump right in. I'm going to start off by showing you fermentation equipment. Please know there's a lot of variety, so you can get other kinds of lids, but this is what I have. So with everything, you always have a mason jar. I use the large ones because I make large batches. And then I buy the whole kit and caboodle together of the lid. It's a mason jar lid, wide mouth mason jars. If you have regular mason jar lids, fermentation is going to be more difficult with that. It doesn't necessarily work the same way, not that you can't do it, but getting the wide mouth jars with these lids tends to be pretty easy. The lid has a hole right in the center, and fermentation kits often come with these little silicone plugs that fit right into the hole. Here's one. And let me just see. There we go. And you just, it fits right in here. Give me a second to fiddle with it and squeeze it right in place. So, whoops. There we go. And that's it. And that's so that if need be, you can turn this over and give it a plug for storage. I will tell you that usually when I'm done with the fermenting stage, I either just put a regular lid and ring on it, or I transfer it to a regular mason jar and use that jar and lid so that I can clean my fermentation kits and keep going with other items. So that's it for this today. I've got the fermentation lid with the little silicone, which leads me to these, your airlock vents. This is a 3-piece little tube. It's got a tube up the center, a little hole at the bottom, and then it has this little piece here that goes right inside. It has little slots all the way around it. That sits on top, and then it has a little cap to go on here. What you do is this goes into the lid right here, which allows for some of the off-gassing, but you're going to also put in some filtered water, which I have here, and you're going to put filtered water to cover those little slot holes that it has all around. And once it's right above that, you're good to put the cover on and the jar stays all sealed up. And the purpose of that is because it creates the airlock, but also creates a space where during the fermentation process, if there's some off-gassing, it kind of lets everything work and burble the way it's supposed to. I mentioned that you can get other kinds. You should know those other kinds. They have some that are just like a piece of silicone with a little nipple, tiny bit of hole in the top. Those are great. You put them on the top of your jar with a little, and then you put the ring and that holds it all down in place. And that is just it's another type. And then they also have some that are the silicone with the hole that you plug up, or it has another nipple, but it actually has a sealing mechanism to tighten down around it. I don't have any of those. Somewhere in my canning equipment, I do have the ones with the little nipple, and I'll dig those out and show you during another recipe. I've got some ideas coming up for some fermented chili paste, because I've got some chilies that are going to be ready soon, and I think that'll be an awesome thing to share with you, because that's actually the base for like something like a sriracha would be made. So I'm excited to share that one with you when it comes around. The other thing I have are these glass weights. They have a little handle right in the top, so I can use it and plunk it right into the jar. This is more important for things like sauerkraut and stuff, because it will hold your shredded cabbage or shredded vegetables or your pickles down into the liquid to be submerged. But they're also handy in things like the kimchi, simply because it starts the compression process and helps work out the juices and lets everything get super nice in there as well. So we'll be putting these in our jars today. I never know if I'm going to have 2, 3, 4 jars. I'm not good at that gauge. So I just always start with 4, and then if I have a little bit of leftover or something like that, I'll get another little jar out and finish it off. But we're starting with this today. So that's all our equipment. Let me move it to the side here. Stack our lids. Leave that one assembled. I don't want to put them all in the way because I want you to see what I'm doing. But for some reason, I'm a little scattered right this very second. I don't know. It's been one of those like very long days. Like it feels like, you know, a Monday. Only it's Sunday, so it should be the weekend where everything is fabulous and wonderful. But it is what it is. But making kimchi will make us feel better. And also, I'm drinking a Bang. And it's that weird one, that whole lot of chocolate. Whole lot of chocolata. It's very, very bizarre tasting, which means I can't stop drinking it. It's so bizarre. Anyways. What I have here are some chili flakes. I have 6 tablespoons worth. I use the flat iron pepper red Asian sometimes, but there are a lot of different varieties, and that's not the traditional chili flakes that you would use. A lot of recipes use the gochujang, which is an already prepared fermented chili paste, but the caveat to that is that there are often starches into those, so you got to be very careful with it. another traditional chili powder flake mixture. It's not a mixture, it's just the chili flakes, which would be the Gochugaru gang. I have a hard time saying it. I will type it out in the description. My apologies to every Korean person that I know. You can give me a smacking upside the head later for screwing it up after you so kindly taught me to make kimchi over all these years. But so I have the chili flakes. As I said, kimchi is a very spicy, very tangy, very funky, crunchy, delicious flavor, but it can be an acquired taste. And if you're not used to some of that funkness or some of that super hot and spicy burny, maybe this is going to be a harder recipe for you. I highly recommend checking out some stuff or having a friend give you a little bit of their homemade if you're keto before you go hog wild and invest in a bunch of stuff for it, because it can be a little bit of an interesting experience if it's a new thing for you. Anyways, previously I showed you all the cabbage, and I used this big giant bowl, and it was like jammed full of all the cabbage. So you can see I've downgraded this bowl of the size. Of course, you can't see the cabbage anymore. It just looks kind of translucent. You could if I turn the green screen off, but that's enough of that business. I love my pictures more, especially this one. We'll show you this recipe sometime as well, because it's pretty awesome, but I don't have my gallon jars right now. I loaned them to someone who was doing some large-scale pickles for an event, and I never got them back, so I'll have to hunt her down and be like, where's my big giant jars? Throw some hands, I don't know. Probably not that, but okay. So I've got all our cabbage. I drained it off, and I gave it a good pressing and then a pat down with some towels. You're not trying to remove every bit of water out of it. You want that brine. You're not rinsing it. You're just dumping it off and giving it a good squeeze down to get rid of excess water. And here's like one of the pieces that we chopped off. And you can see it's still pretty crunchy and crispy, but I wish there was a good way to really demonstrate to you on the camera how it differs, because it's definitely, it's a slightly different texture. Of course, this one's very green, so you're just getting that green screen effect. While it's still got a lot of texture to it, it's definitely, it's a softer, it's a gentler, crunchy texture, if that makes any sense at all. But once you get it, you'll know exactly what I mean, how it's still crispy, but it's not the same crispy it once was, because it's reduced, it's let out of a lot of its water. You can see through it a bit more, and that's not just a green screen, it becomes more translucent. Now the stem stays pretty good and solid, but it's delightful. It's salty, but already delicious. Of course, I was eating it raw yesterday and telling you it was delicious, so now it's just salty delicious, which is perfect for if you're keto. So I have here 10 cloves of garlic. Now, here's something I'm going to tell you. This is actually important. Do not use a jarred garlic or a paste garlic or the little roasted garlic in the jars, or even the pre-peeled whole cloves. It's actually important to your kimchi to go ahead and do the extra work to use fresh ingredients. I know, it pains me. I like that convenient pasted up garlic. Man, it's great for a lot of things, but for your kimchi, fresh is best. It's what's going to work in. It's what's going to really contribute to a lot of the work during the fermentation. If you start with something that's already been pre-pasted, it's already had time to do some working and mellowing, and so it won't meld in the same fashion. But wait until you see this. And I just peel my whole cloves and run them through the mincer, and that's all there is to it. So it's not that bad. It's just definitely not as convenient as a big old squeeze from the tube. So 10 cloves of garlic. I have now fresh ginger, which looks like these little weird trees. Just take a big hunk of it. I use like a piece about, if I went like right up the middle here, about like that. I know. That's the other thing is I'm not good at measuring. I'll try and make some measurements up for you in the recipe below, but a lot of it is just going to be by feel. It's not a science, even though it's kind of a science. It's not baking, and a lot of it will go by your senses. And man, this is some strong, delightful, fresh ginger. But I use like a piece about what I'm showing you in the middle of my hands right here. And you take a spoon and you scrape off the outer brown part, the peel. It's super thin. A peeler won't work. I mean, it might work, but you're really going to just be peeling right into the ginger. A light scrape with a regular tableware will be more than sufficient. And then I take it on one of those citrus zesters, or the really super fine part of like the grater, and I just smush it, rub it back and forth until it also gets that pasted kind of look. And we dump that right in with our chili flakes. Like I said, just a powerful mixture here right now, isn't it? Oh, it smells so fragrant. This is, I can't tell you. I'm so excited for this. The next thing I have are these green onions, which you cannot see at all, and it looks like a funky clear bowl. It's your scallions, your green onions, the long green with the stick. I didn't anticipate the fact that they would completely disappear. Well, it is what it is. Nope, I can't really, well, you know what green onions are. And if you don't, send me a post in the comments, and I will get a picture up on Facebook or something to show you a green onion without the filter. Or if you want, oh, let's just do it real quick so you can see everything, and then we'll turn it back on. Let's get in here, my filters, and we'll get rid of the chroma key. So, ta-da, really boring. Now you see the studio. But yeah, it's a lot of green onions. This is it's a heaping cup. I use a lot of onions. You don't have to use quite that much if you don't want to, but I really find that it adds to the flavor. To me, it's pretty important. And boom, green screen back on. There we are, kimchi, beautiful. So, and then the last thing I have, and I'm going to go ahead and dump this right in here into my bowl. The last thing I have is this giant batch of the Daikon Radish. If you haven't seen a Daikon Radish, it's a big tubular radish about as big as I'm showing you with my fingers, and about this big around. I cut it into like 4 triangles, and then I cut it into little teeny slivers. A lot of kimchi recipes will tell you to julienne it, and that would be nice too. But I like these weird little rectangular pieces. I find that they're it's just right for me. So you don't have to be, again, you don't have to be super precise. It's meant to tailor it for yourself. But as you can see, again, they are very thin. It's just a little thicker. Like if I cut each one of these in half lengthwise, that would be a julienne. I just went wider. I like it wider. I like the crunchy bit from the radish. What can I say? But so I've got I don't know, I cut quite a lot, maybe about 1.5 cups. And I'm going to go ahead and dump that right here on top of my cabbage. Delightful. Maybe I probably will have to pause for a second and go ahead and get that giant bowl back now that I'm looking at it. This might be too big for tossing around and mixing together. But we can do that. It'll be just a minute. But then the last thing for my paste, 1/4 cup fish sauce. If you've seen some of my other videos where we've made other dishes where we've used fish sauce, I like the Red Boat brand. It's keto compliant. And so that's what we've got. That's what's actually going to juice this all up. And we just mix this in. And ta-da! So, and now you give this one great big mix. Right? So, and it is hot. I can't even tell you it, because It just is. That's what it's supposed to be. It's spicy. And all of that garlic and ginger comes together, and the fish sauce kind of gives it that nice pasty sort of texture. I really wish that you guys could smell this, and I really think that we ought to do something crazy, like maybe for those of us who are at Keto Palooza. I don't know. That seems too crazy. Maybe not. I was like, let's make this in my hotel room. I'm like, okay, now you're getting too far in the weeds, Maitreya. Settle yourself down. But, so, that fish sauce moistens everything up and mixes in. And as you stir it around, you're mushing that garlic and stuff a little bit more. And it is getting very nice and juicy. I'm going to let it sit for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and get one of my bigger bowls so that we can mix it together and I can show you that part. So, be right back. Okay, everyone, I've grabbed my big bowl, which of course also goes invisible part ways to the green screen. So, should be interesting. I'm going to go ahead and throw some gloves on. But as you can see, here is what your chili paste and with those vegetables and fish sauce shows up like. So you can see it's gotten quite moist. The chili flakes have absorbed the fish sauce, blended together with all that garlic and ginger, and really just come together. And now you get to the fun part of making kimchi. I say fun, but that's up to you. Maybe this is the revolting part for you because you don't like mixing things up with your hands. I don't know. And to some extent, I feel silly wearing gloves, but honestly, the chili is hot, and later, it's just so much easier to get rid of the gloves and then do like a quick double wash of your hands. And then you're not going to accidentally touch your eyes later and be really sorry. So I take my radish and cabbage, and we start throwing that in there. I try to get it kind of layered a little bit. So that it's a little bit easier for mixing. I grab a radish that tried to escape. I throw a big scoop of my chili paste in there. I spill it on the table and I scoop that up. Man, I just watched this thing. All right, so I throw a piece of paste right in there. I do another layer of my veg, kind of giving it a little toss together. I told you this was easy, right? And even though I'm doing a lot of talking, it's pretty easy. Did I give you some kimchi facts? I don't remember. If not, you'll get them twice because we talked about the equipment. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit, about kimchi. It's a probiotic food, which are really great for our gut health. And this way, on the ketogenic diet, it's actually really quite good for you as well. Traditional kimchi, not so much because it has a rice flour component to the paste making that is not something we can have. So, glasses. Sorry about that. I had to push my glasses up. So, this version, the Ketofied version, very, very good for you. That probiotic, that fermentation of the foods is really going to help with your gut health. It's also Whole30 compliant, GAPS compliant, and paleo compliant if you follow any of those food plans. If you're not familiar with GAPS, that's a special elimination protocol people use to help find out what is upsetting their gut and impacting their digestive system, and therefore creating some of that insulin resistance, etc., etc., etc. We should talk about it sometime. I think it's a fascinating subject. And I'm pretty sure that I have a few subscribers who have issues with things like leaky gut or poor gut health, where this fermentation food, little mini series that I'm doing here, which is really for my enjoyment, is actually going to be really beneficial for you guys in the long run. So, hey, it's a twofer, right? Tastes great and it's good for us. Even with all these chilies, chilies get kind of a bad rap for being acidic and people immediately cut them when really, actually the culprits are often things like rice and starches and sugars. Now, I will tell you, in traditional kimchi, there's also a tendency to sometimes add sugar to kind of offset the heat, because sugar and hot, spicy often pairs well together. If that's something that you like, add a couple drops of whatever sweetener you like, or a spoon of allulose, or whatever. It's up to you. I don't bother. It's not worth it to me. I like it salty, briny, and spicy. Sometimes I'll add other things into it. In traditional kimchis, there's tons and tons of recipes, and oftentimes they'll use things like carrots or more onions, not just our little green onions, but they'll add like sliced other onions. Sometimes I'll add sliced red bell pepper in there because I really like that pop of color to it, or an orange one. I just think it looks good, and then also they are really delicious, crunchy, and fermented. But for the most part, I like to keep it as simple as possible. So from here, all we're doing now is getting this a good mix, because you want to get that chili stuff all coated over our kimchi, our cabbage, I mean, to make our kimchi. And you can even see on the camera that it's starting to get some color and some red, because suddenly the cabbage is starting to appear just a little bit. So, oh man, the smell is so good, you guys. So this is like kind of an important part. It does take a little bit. A lot of people will tell you, like, get in there and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And I'm going to tell you, don't do that. Respect your food. If you're making sauerkraut, absolutely, you're going to squeeze it for what feels like 100 years and get it all squished down and wet and juicy and use the whole brine. But here, you don't want to be bruising up your cabbage. You just want to be softening it with the casual folding and turning to make sure it gets good and nicely coated with the sauce, or paste rather. So the other thing I'll tell you is that this kimchi is basically it's nutrient dense. There's a lot of really good vitamins in the chilies, and garlic and ginger are both also pretty good for your gut health. So those are some pretty awesome things about the kimchi. Oh man, the smell is incredible. Oh man. Again, I have to say, for like the 5th time in these videos, I wish there was smell-o-vision. If you could smell this, you would want to dive in right now with a big old fork and chow down. So you might wonder, what do we do with this kimchi anyways once it's done? Which, by the way, I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but the level of the cabbage has actually continued to go down, because now that the paste is hitting it and we're giving it a stir, that salty brine that was still stuck on it is starting to help it tear down just a smidge. So it will continue to do that. Like I said, just keep folding and getting it good and lovely and coated. You don't want any lumps of paste or any clusters of radish. You want it all mixed and nicely together. There are reasons. So anyways, also later we'll be doing the live stream, and I'm super excited about that too, because I just love that we're having all these non-American things. Not that American things are bad, but sometimes we miss out on some of the rest of the world, and there's just so much variety out there that I want all of it, American included, of course, but just I can't imagine having missed out on kimchi because I only ate foods from my little region. But so I'm just like super stoked. Everything is coming out great. Although lately it's been really busy and stressful, which is not good for you to have a lot of stress. But as I said, coming together and all of us spending our time together and sharing our comments and all of that stuff definitely makes a big difference. And I will try to remember before this video gets posted to add a link to these little fermentation kits, because they're actually pretty economical. And again, they have everything, so they're really easy to use. All right. So here we are. I've got everything good and coated, and now you can see it. I think that's so funny. The green screen is so particular about anything remotely green. My shirt's even green screen today because I've got my Peltonia shirt. So All right, but here we are. Here's the fun part. Bring your jar over. And we're just going to take little bits of it. And we're going to push, just going to start doing this, filling our jars up. And we'll do one, and then I'll let you go, because really it's going to be a repeat, and we'll get it all good and coated. I'll show you, we'll put the lid on, and then basically it's just repeat. And then what we'll wait, kimchi, really, it'll take like about a week for it to be done. And so then we'll open it up and we'll taste it. I just give it a little bit of a toss once more. Again, incredible smell. You gotta be careful. You don't want to be like too messy. You'll have to wipe it all down. You know, you don't want to be dirty, but understandable. Some things are going to happen as you go. So, as you can see, we've got it going pretty good here. I'm going to give it like one more little scoop. One more. Get these little, so some radishes here. I throw those right on the top. And one more leaf. There we go. So you can see I've got my jar. It's filled like just to the top of the line here. I'm going to go ahead and take this one glove off. So I'm going to touch my lid. I'm going to put my weight down, which gives it a nice compression. I take my, first we're going to give it a wipe off so it's not dirty. I'm just going to take my gloves off. I can use new ones. So guess what has to happen between finishing this off and then getting ready for the knife strain? If you guessed we're going to wash this damn tablecloth one more time, you are correct. Don't call me out for swearing. Fortunately, I'm not monetized, so if we say an occasional bad word, things slip out. It's not the end of the world. But, you know, here we go. So I just made sure my jar was good and tidy. Put this lid on. Let's go ahead and put this. You don't have to cram it in there. Just give it a little twist. It's not a screw, but I find that twisting is a little bit gentler on the silicone, so you're not going to tear your little rings. And I'm going to add my filtered water. Again, just a little bit to cover. I've got it to about right about here. Where, I don't know if you can see my finger. There we go, right about here. And my little plastic lid. Little struggle. Come on, plastic lid, you can do it. So I say. There we go. Sometimes, you know, jars. But there you go. Kimchi. Oh, doesn't that look gorgeous? Even with the green screen effect, it looks beautiful. It smells amazing. And it is so good for you. So in about a week, we will try it out. I'll show you, maybe we'll hold off on putting this video together. And I can show you a little bit in a couple days when we open it and give it a little test. About 3 days in, that's what you want to do. And I'll just add that in. We'll do quick pickles first, and then we can talk about kimchi later in the week before we hit Cheese Friday. Even if we have to wait till next week to post the kimchi, I think we'll be all right. I can talk about something else in between. Well, I'll see you guys later. You have a great time. Know that you are awesome. I think that you are fantastic. I applaud all your efforts, no matter what path you walk. And you are amazing people, and I'm really glad to have you here on my YouTube channel. Which leads into the YouTube thing. No, we already did that in the intro. I don't have to remind you to subscribe. I will talk to you later. Enjoy. Have a great day. Bye-bye.